Eric Edholm does a great job covering the NFL, and, of course, NFL writer per Pro Football Weekly. Joins us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Hopefully we will talk a lot of football with him this season. Eric, always good to catch up, my friend. How you been?
Yeah, everything's good. What's happening with you?
We are just motoring along, looking ahead to week 2. You know, we always get the overreaction after week 1. You know, it's funny. We just had a Steelers fan on talking about the Bell situation in Pittsburgh. I mean, do you think this situation will resolve itself, or are you of the belief that LeVeon Bell's really serious here and he'll sit out possibly the whole season?
Yeah, you know, the thing is, I mean, it's felt like the plan has changed, and I think that was one of the reasons why the Steelers' offensive linemen were so upset. They got the impression, whether it was directly from Bell or secondhand or whatever it was, that he was going to be there prior to week 1, and then that obviously changed, and, you know, now there are threats of holding out for an extended period. So that's why I think a lot of people inside the locker room, not talking management or anything like that, but the players, his teammates, are saying, come on, man, just give us an idea. We don't want to mess with your money. We're not trying to hold you back. You know, if we knew in June or July this was going on, okay, we kind of adjust and go from there. But, you know, there's been this back and forth. He might show up, he might not. He's not there yet. I don't know. I mean, at this point, shouldn't he just sit out the first 10 weeks, you know? I mean, if this is what you're going to do, you've already burned bridges. I know you're leaving a lot of money on the table, but I don't think his agent advises him to do that, losing $850,000 a week, whatever it is. Unless he feels like he can make up the $8.5 million, $850 times 10, with another team next year. That has to be what his thinking is, that he's talked to enough teams and has more than one team, not just one, but 2 or 3 or more, that feel like he's going to get probably $10 million more than what the Steelers have offered in guaranteed money. Look, I'm just trying to look at it from the agent's perspective and try to, you know what I mean, and figure out his plan.
How about the Packers and the Bears Sunday night? Listen, I thought the Bears were going to be much improved. I knew Mack was a player, but it looked like he garnered Defensive Player of the Year awards in like 20-something odd snaps. He was just flat out dominant, and then you get the Rodgers coming back with the injury. Listen, we know Rodgers is a brilliant player, but to me, that's a game the Bears should have won. I mean, they dominated that game even after or prior to Rodgers going out. That's a game, if you're Nagy and if you're Bears, you got to be kicking yourself, because that could have been a huge franchise win to open up the season on the road.
Right. I mean, settling for field goals twice in the second half, I think that was the biggest thing. You know, up 17-0, the difference between 17 and 20 is negligible, but I kind of understood why they kicked that field goal. You know, I mean, that wasn't the chart, the aggressive chart says you still go for that, but I can forgive that one. The one later when there's, 2 minutes, 30 seconds left, you know, and you've got them on the ropes there, and I know Kyle Fuller could have made a pick to end it plays later, but still, that's the one that's like, all summer long, Matt Nagy has won people over in Chicago by saying he's going to be innovative. He's going to spread the ball around. They've got all these fancy formations and motions, and we saw a lot of that early in the game. But he also talked about being aggressive, and part of being aggressive is going for it on 4th down. Look, no one would have everyone would have understood if you're a Bears fan going into that game, okay, we lose up at Green Bay, sure, we expect that. When you have a chance to win, you got to go for it. So I think I absolutely agree. You know, Rodgers was fantastic, but this is a chance to steal a game here.
Eric, I want to get your thoughts on some of the rookies and their debuts, but we know it looks as though Josh Allen's going to get the nod against the Chargers. To me, the Bills right now, listen, I don't even know what to make of that franchise. I think it was a disgrace that you lose in that fashion to open up the season. Okay, Baltimore, Flacco had one of his days. I get it, but 47-3 on the road, that's embarrassing. Why not just start Allen out of the gate? Now all of a sudden, boom, you're going to go to him game 2.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can look back at like the Texans last year, right? They went with Tom Savage, and they decided at halftime of week 1 this wasn't working. They made a quick hook. It worked out for them, obviously, you know, before Watson's injury. So we may look back in 5 or 6 weeks and say, you know what, they figured it out quickly. They realized their error. Good for them. Okay, probably should have given it the chance week 1. The feeling was similar to Watson in 2017. Allen just didn't get better in that 3rd preseason game. Did they put too much weight in that? Perhaps. I think there was also a fear, and you saw it in that game, the Ravens were just dissecting their pass protections and just kniving through holes and, hitting Peterman. And then when Allen got in, I think his first 7 dropbacks, he had 3 sacks. So, there's still this fear of, do we throw the kid out there with this totally rebuilt offensive line? No Cordy Glenn, no Eric Wood, no Richie Incognito, a lot of new guys, and get him killed. That's the worry.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Remember David Carr, his year, 72 sacks?
Yeah, that's the offensive line. That was your definition of baptismal by fire.
Right. Yeah, and it's worrisome. So look, they got to do something, whether it's, use heavy formations and put an extra tight end or a back out there to help. I mean, I don't know what they do, but I'll also say the coaches look like they had no clear offensive vision in that game. Like they had by the third series, they looked like they were just calling plays. Let's put our finger on the Denny's menu and see what we can call up. So
you can't remind me of the menu because that's a segue into McAdoo, who I thought was a clown, which is another segue into the Giants. And way to kick off the season, Eric Flowers. Nothing new with that offensive line. Listen, I know you move them on the other side. I understand it, and I've spoke to a bunch of tackles and guys that played the position. He just, again, completely looks lost. Now, he wasn't as bad late last season, but again, it's these horrible penalties, especially to start the season, the first drive. I think that line puts so much more pressure. The weakness of that line puts so much on pressure on Eli. To be fair, you got to hit Odell. You got to make some of those throws because you can still throw the deep ball, but ultimately, I can't get on them too much because they went and they tried to fix that line and spend money.
Yeah.
I'm worried that they believe they don't have anyone better to replace Flowers with. That's scary.
Yeah, or better than Patrick Omame at right guard.
Yeah, sure.
That's one of the 3 or 4 games that I still haven't watched carefully this week. I was traveling up to Green Bay, so I saw bits and pieces. So hard for me to give you too many specifics. But, yeah, I think you're right. That – it was like, all right, we're going to move him, here. We're going to move him there. We're going to salvage him. We're going to do whatever we can. Sometimes a new coach, a new line coach, a new scheme can help a player. In this case, I think your theory is absolutely right, that they just didn't have enough. And, between signing Solder, drafting Will Hernandez high in round 2, they'd already poured some pretty big assets into that group, and they'd already used the high pick on Flowers a few years back. So I think the feeling was, yeah, we'd love to pour more in, but this is a multi-year thing here. And, John Halapio could be a good success story. Right. It looked like he may have, gotten off a little slowly at first. But yeah, that's already a lot of new faces right there and a lot of assets poured into that group.
And listen, Barkley was shut down early on, then had the great run, the division to cut, and they just don't have that explosive back. They've never really had it in franchise history. And Jacksonville, bottom up, it's a great defense. It's a tough game to start the season. And I think what happens is, because I'm already getting it with fans, and then you talk to Jet fans, the comparisons right away. Hey, I had no problem if the Giants were going to draft Sam Darnold because it wasn't about, but he wasn't going to start this year with that offensive line. But be that as it may, he throws the pick 6, first pass in his career, and then I'm telling you, this kid's made for New York because what does he do? He's unflappable. He's like that reliever. He doesn't get flustered, and then he's making these throws on third down. I was thoroughly impressed. I was really disappointed in the Lions, but I was pretty impressed with the Jets and their effort Monday night.
I was too. It was weird, though. I've liked the Jets all offseason. I think they're going to be a sneaky good team. I think I picked them to go 8-8 or something like that, 9-7. I have to go back and look. But I felt pretty good about them. They're young. There's still some things that they have holes on. It's not like they're going to go into next offseason without needs. They're going to be aggressive and sign, and go after free agents again next year. But I really felt that with the schedule laying out the way it did, they had a chance to kind of build something this season and build a foundation and sort of tell people, hey, this is going to be good. And the Darnold move, obviously, they got lucky. I'm not saying that,
they did because Cleveland.
Blindly,
yeah. You're right.
It worked out brilliantly where they had their choice of guys not named Mayfield. So, but still, you're right. Even though that throw, the Robbie Anderson touchdown, a good DB probably picks that. Look at the stuff in between the pick 6 and throw that other play out, and you say, just what you did. the poise, the not getting rattled for a 21-year-old kid. There are 26-year-old quarterbacks in this league that don't have that. I was up in Green Bay. I watched Mitch Trubisky. He had the happy feet. He looked like a little unsure of himself in the second half. That's maybe the thing that Darnold has that other young quarterbacks just aren't naturally gifted with.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on the Eagles and Nick Foles, and if or when Carson Wentz is going to be cleared. I mean, we have so many theories out there, and I know they're going to start with Nick Foles in week 2. And this is just my opinion, and it might be a little off the cuff, off the wall, but my opinion is, listen, they know. Howie knows, Jeffrey Lurie knows, Doug knows, Carson Wentz knows if he's cleared or not. I think there is a little bit of apprehension. Maybe they're a little tentative. They want to bubble wrap him a little bit, and they don't want to throw him out there. And maybe they figure, look, it doesn't matter who's under center. As long as the defense plays lights out, we can get through the first couple games of the season, 3-1, 4-0, and then we'll be okay. That's just my theory.
Yeah, I think it absolutely makes sense. And when there was that report about 7 or 10 days before the season that Wentz hadn't been cleared, that was the first time I thought, okay, this isn't going to happen as quickly as everybody hopes. And I didn't necessarily start thinking October 1st, but that's kind of what we're looking at. Look, they gutted their way through their first game. They get Tampa Bay without Jameis. I know what they did with Fitzpatrick, but still, let's put it in perspective. That JPP may not play in this game.
Hargrove on the IR, right?
Yeah. I mean, Hargrave's been there, pencil into their nickel spot,
yep,
et cetera. They're catching this Bucs team at a good time, even coming off a good win. I really believe that, and they have extra time to prepare. And they've got Colts and then Titans. None of these teams are going to blow your hair back. Again, even with the explosive ability of what the Bucs showed on week 1, you're gearing up for that Minnesota game, I think. And again, could he play against the Colts or something? Sure, but I think your theory absolutely makes a ton of sense. Why rush it? Yeah, I like that. And you're playing with house money. You want a title. You don't have to just throw him back in there and say, we're desperate to win the division. We got to do things the right way around here. They've been traditionally conservative with the medical people. I think this is absolutely the plan as it stands right now.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the fan base, they don't want to hear it. If you're talking now, if we're having this conversation week 6, week 7, well, then there's cause for concern. I mean, it's week 1, week 2, so. Again, you can't just panic because the season, the way you break down the season, it's a long season, and like I had, this Coughlin and Parcells used to say it's in halves. You go 5-3, 5-3, that gets you to 10-6. You're in the playoffs. So,
yep.
You're right. They are playing with house money. Who had the most impressive performance team wise in week 1? At first, I thought it was Tampa Bay, but then again, for me, for the Jets with a 21-year-old quarterback on the road, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, to overcome the early mistake and look way more poised than a Lions team that, look, Matt Patricia arrived with this disciplinarian, reputation. He was going to be the guy that was going to clean things up and limit the mistakes. What did they do? They led the NFL in mistakes in week 1, the Lions did. So, but the Jets showed that poise. They had 2 running backs who produced. They had this rookie quarterback looking sharp. The offensive line didn't look like a problem to me, other than maybe the Kennard sack. That was really maybe the one that kind of looked a little wonky blocking-wise. But still, I mean, the defense without Marcus May, I thought, played really well. They covered well, they pursued, they tackled well. They obviously knew something about game plan-wise what the Lions were doing. Darren Lee looked like a playmaker out there. I mean, that's what they need on the inside. If they're going to spend all that money on the inside linebackers, those guys have to make those kind of plays. So, yeah, they and the Ravens, I thought, looked really sharp. And those are my Super Bowl picks have already gone to hell. My award winners have already blown up in week 1. But I felt pretty good about the Ravens and Jets for the season, and they both looked pretty good.
Who were your Super Bowl picks?
God, do I have to say?
Yeah, I had the Saints and the Patriots.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you're still looking okay, I think, But
would you go, San Diego?
I had the Chargers. I know. God, man,
Who'd you have, San Diego and the Lions?
No, God, no. I had them in 4th place.
Or Los Angeles,
I had the Falcons, and obviously 2 injuries now, but Boy, tell me I'm wrong. Matt Ryan, what the hell? What's going on there?
Listen, I have no idea. I have absolutely no. First of all, he never plays well against the Eagles. They've just had his number. And
True.
I'll tell you, I'll give my producer Josh credit. He said this a while back. You take that coordinator off that team, and all of a sudden, boom, that offense. They haven't been the same. They haven't.
Yeah, I thought when I watched the Atlanta Falcons in 2015, Kyle Shanahan's first year there as coordinator. They got shut out by the Panthers late in the year. They looked they looked terrible in the red zone. They obviously flipped it 180 degrees the next year, the Super Bowl year. I just kind of felt like, look, they're going to sit down with Steve Sarkisian. They're going to figure out what they do well. They're going to have their bread and butter plays. They're going to know how to attack the red zone better. They're going to solve these issues that plague them. Week 1, we saw no evidence of that, really. I mean, it was a good scripted opening drive, and then after that, nothing really seemed to work, especially the red zone stuff. So I don't know, man. I mean, obviously the defensive injuries right now are what the biggest issue is.
Before I let you out of here, last one to close it out. I said this yesterday. I don't believe Gruden lasts 3 seasons. If 4 to me is pushing it because of the money. Well, remember, I think when we spoke last year, I thought Mahomes was going to start in week 5, so I've been off before. So I looked at Gruden after that first drive, and there you go, Gruden. He's rah, rah, rah. And then after a while, he's looking around saying, what the hell is my quarterback doing? And by the way, you have to watch Sunday night that you're gonna pay your head coach $100 million, but your best defensive player, arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, you don't want to pay him. So add a little salt to the wound right there. But I don't see it. I don't see him lasting 3 seasons on the sidelines. I just don't.
Right. I mean, that gets you 1 year in Vegas. You know what I mean? Assuming they everything still go with that, and there's no hang-ups and everything. So, this year, next in Oakland, they get out of there as fast as they can. They get to Vegas. Maybe it's a little bit of a fresh start there, and they kind of say, okay, now we're gearing up. Now we can attract free agents. Now we can do this and that and the other thing. I feel like it's going to go a little longer than that, but, I mean, man, what's the buyout on a $100 million deal after 3 or 4 years? Right. Oh, my gosh.
Think about that.
When
Pro-rated.
When you pay him $100 million, guess what? He gets to make the call on Khalil Mack.
Of course he does.
There is no general manager.
I know.
I mean, there's no, I feel bad for Reggie McKenzie and Mark Davis and all those guys who are like, well, we got to follow him into the darkness here and figure out if he knows how to get out,
I posted real quick before I let you get out of here. I tweeted out the other day Raiders fans watching the Sunday night game, and it was a gift of Fredo and the Godfather when he's screaming, "That's not the way I wanted it." Remember that part when he's on the sofa, right? I mean, I felt so bad for them. Like, wow.
Oh yeah.
So all right, look.
Yeah, Fredo, go get this. Go get me a pass rusher. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Don't make a big fuss about this, Fredo.
Oh, God.
All right, listen, I always appreciate it, pal. Hopefully we'll talk during the season, but great insight as always. Appreciate you jumping on board for a couple of moments.
Looking forward to it, man. See you soon.
You got it. Be well. Eric Edholm, he's really good. Really some good stuff.